Hello and welcome everybody, I am Brandon, and we got a buttload of Perfect Dark news to talk about today. From the sounds of it, Xbox's first Quadruple A studio, The Initiative, who's working on the Perfect Dark reboot, are running into some serious development issues. They seem to be losing high-level devs at an alarming rate, and from the sounds of it, Crystal Dynamics sort of seems to be sneaking in there and sort of filling in spots for them. We're gonna go through all that news and more on another episode of Game Corner. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you like what I do, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more, and I'll stop wasting your time. So like I said, Xbox's first-party studio, The Initiative, is running into some serious issues while working on the Perfect Dark reboot. It was recently reported to VGC that they've lost more than half of their employees in the last 12 months, and apparently a large portion of them are senior-level developers. People like the game director and design director, Dan Newberger and Drew Murray. Dan Newberger, of course, directed Rise of the Tomb Raider over at Crystal Dynamics, and Drew Murray, of course, directed Sunset Overdrive over at Insomniac Games. And honestly, that's just the tip of the iceberg. They have more spots opening up than I could even list off here. Everything from lead level designer to lead technical artist to QA. People seem to be dropping like flies over there. As well as only having 3 advertised jobs on their website, only hiring about 12 people in the last 6 months or so. And according to LinkedIn, they only have about 50 employees at the moment. So we can kind of take this information and extrapolate that they've probably lost more than 50 employees in the last year. Especially with a lot of those people being recorded as senior level developers, it's kind of hard to believe that something sketchy isn't going on over at The Initiative right now. VGC did conduct some interviews with some of the employees that had left The Initiative recently, and they all sort of cited lack of creative autonomy and just a really slow development process as kind of being the reason they wanted to leave. They also mentioned that this had had a severe impact on the project and how far it had come in this amount of time. And obviously with everything going on in the world right now, there are plenty of positions open for senior level devs to fill if they're unhappy in their current position. The plot thickens though when we can actually trace these employees quitting back to last September when they announced that they would be co-signing Crystal Dynamics onto the Perfect Dark reboot project. So now we're starting to kind of see the wheels turn here and figuring out maybe why these developers are leaving in the first place and why there's this slow development process, etc. It's very possible that Crystal Dynamics has gotten a much larger role on this project just because of how long it's been taken to be made, and we could maybe assume that this lack of creative autonomy is coming from this big studio kind of stepping in to fill the gap. Ironically enough, Dan Newberger and Drew Murray brought on Crystal Dynamics in the first place because they wanted more control over the project, more of a top-down instead of a bottom-up, which is, like I said, kind of what The Initiative was going to be all about in the first place. Kind of brought on this big studio to help them do what they wanted to do, and then, you know, up and bailed when they decided they didn't have enough power over the project. So we kind of got a couple different parties here. We got Crystal Dynamics, who has just stepped in to actually help with the project, and they, you know, are just a third party in this whole thing. And then we have Dan Newberger and Drew Murray, who seemed like they kind of wanted to take control of this project, didn't have enough of that control and bailed out. And then you have just the regular employees at The Initiative, who were probably pretty stoked to be a part of this Quadruple A studio making PlayStation exclusive-esque video games, only to be told that they have to follow what Drew Murray and Dan Newberger want, and then get their spots filled by Crystal Dynamics. As always, take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. We are doing a lot of assuming here. We're taking information and kind of using that to make an educated guess at what's going on. That being said, having all this information and interviews with developers and stuff like that, we can kind of start to paint a picture of what maybe is going on over at The Initiative here. And funny enough, when VGC reached out to The Initiative to talk to them about this whole situation, they talked to the studio head, Gilligan, and he gave a completely different side of the story. It's no small task to build a studio and reinvent a beloved franchise. In creating The Initiative, we set out to leverage co-development partnerships to achieve our ambitions, and we're really excited about all the progress we're seeing with our relationship with Crystal Dynamics. In this journey, it's not uncommon for there to be staffing changes, especially during a time of global upheaval over the last 2 years. And there's plenty more work in front of us to deliver a fantastic Perfect Dark experience to our players. We wish all of our former colleagues the very best, and I'm confident in the team we have in place, the new talent joining, and we can't wait to share more with the fans. So basically what Gilligan is trying to say here is like, it's cool guys, don't freak out. I know we have all these gigantic high-level developers, some of the most popular in the industry right now, completely up and leaving our project, but everything's okay. There's no need to worry. we're still gonna deliver a perfect dark experience that the players want. And frankly, I'm not really buying it. Well, it is pretty normal to have a high turnover rate, especially at like a new studio like this. Losing all these high-level developers and senior staff is not a good look. Especially when this game is supposed to be in like mid-development right now, losing your game director and your art director and your QA lead and all this stuff is really bad. And then having to pretty much hire Crystal Dynamics to come on and kind of fill those spots is creating this really weird work environment for the people who are already there. And it's just ironic that Dan and Drew's kind of top-down approach to this whole thing has kind of gotten them in this situation in the first place and sort of forced Crystal Dynamics to come in and figure out how to make this all work. Especially when the initiative was supposed to be all about collaborating with these greats in the industry to make these high-level projects. I mean, let's be real, Quadruple A video games has always sounded really fucking stupid. But this studio is a pretty big deal for Xbox, and if they can't pull off making Perfect Dark, then I'm sorry, they're not gonna pull off making anything. Not that Perfect Dark isn't going to be a technical marvel, or not that it's hard to make the game by any means. They just are using an already established IP with already established characters in a world, etc. And something that people already enjoy. They literally just have to make it work correctly, and like people are gonna buy it. But yeah, I mean, if you're expecting to get those PlayStation exclusive-esque titles, then I mean, you need to put in the work and put in the time to get studios that are gonna be able to output work like that. You don't just build this stuff overnight. Naughty Dog has been working on perfecting what they do for, 20 years now. And obviously I love the idea of all these really high level developers kind of being in one place and trying to make really, really big video games. But oftentimes when you have all these high level developers in one place, they have big heads and they all want their own ideas in their own places and they want all this control over the project. So it's like, I don't necessarily blame Drew, I don't blame Dan, I don't blame the employees necessarily, or even Crystal Dynamics. I think this was just kind of a bad idea to start with, honestly. Xbox always sort of has this issue where they just want what PlayStation has immediately, and they don't realize that they've had to work to get that for a long time. I mean, hell, the first Uncharted was really bad, and before that we got Crash Bandicoot, which, I mean, I love, but is undoubtedly a mediocre platformer. Only eventually to have gotten something like The Last of Us 2 or God of War, because they have iterated and iterated and iterated over many, many times, and eventually landed on something that people really resonated with. I know we're eventually going to get this game. It was announced back in 2018 at the Game Awards, so it's only a matter of time now. But I'd be pretty wary about it if I were you. This studio just seems to be making more promises than it can pull off, and for that reason, I'm out. Anyway, that's about all the Perfect Dark news I have for you guys today. We are talking about Xbox's Quadruple A first-party studio, The Initiative, who's working on the Perfect Dark reboot, and they seem to be having some development hell. I'm Brandon. This was Game Corner. Thanks for watching, and have a kick-ass week.